What's up, you guys? So today I'm going to be doing a video talking about specifically about lace closures. I did my video talking about other closures. Now I'm going to talk about lace because that's my closure preference, and that's the type of closure that I believe needs the most amount of time to talk about, because there are a lot of things you got to do to a lace closure in order to get it ready for your head if you're not wearing your part in one part where your hair is parted underneath, okay? So I already have my video up about how to bleach the knots on a lace closure, but you can also get away with not bleaching the knots, okay? And when I say get away with not bleaching the knots, that means you can either not do anything to them or you can do faux bleaching. Faux bleaching involves using, you can either use the spray on hair color, or in your color, of course, the color that matches your scalp, or you can use a color that the spray tan. There are different kinds that you use, but it's a spray tan in your color also, and you would spray that, and you spray it on the underside of the lace, and it kind of seeps through onto the knots on this side and covers it up. Another option is to not do anything to the knots, and then when you wear your closure, use some powder makeup, cream makeup, foundation, concealer, eyeshadow in your color, of course, and you dab it in your part, wherever you're wearing your part, or around the hairline. Just dab it with a tiny brush, which I also did an example of that in one of my videos. So I'll try to find it and link it. And that's as far as the knots go. You also want to seal the knots no matter what, whether you bleach them or not. You want to seal them. Now, I was using Patricia Nimrock's clear acrylic sealant, and then I got some TDI knot sealer. Now I prefer to use stuff that isn't as harmful, doesn't have as many chemicals in it. So I tend to use Got to Be Glued Freeze Blast spray, or either, don't have it with me, but Icy Hair Polisher Super Hold Spritz. So those are Big Bad D has a spritz that's murder. I think it's called Lacquer. That one works really well too. And you would just spray it lightly on the underside, let it dry, and then you can spray it again lightly on the underside. Okay, and that helps seal it. But you will need to reseal. You can either do it after every wash if your wash is off, or do it after every install if you're sewing it on. That's it for knots and sealing. You can also check out my video on how to tint the scalp on a closure. You do that with RIT dye or any kind of fabric dye in your color, and a lot of the common colors that are used for people of color would be tan, taupe, cocoa brown, or dark brown. There's a new color called dark brown. It might not be new. I just saw it for the first time recently, which I think will work better for people with a darker complexion, because the cocoa tends to give off a red cast, and the dark brown looked like it was more neutral and wouldn't be red, it would just be an even brown. So yeah, another option to tint the lace would be with tea. I haven't used the tea, so I cannot tell you what kind of tea to use, but it is a method that you can research if that's something you're interested in. It involves steeping tea bags, and then just how I did the RIT dip, you would put your closure into the tea mixture. And that is to tint the lace on your closure to match your scalp, because if the lace doesn't match, I don't know if this matches my skin, but if it doesn't match like that, you'll see it no matter what. You're going to see your grid, you're going to see it at your hairline or wherever it is. So you want the lace to match as much as possible. Another option to match the lace is to use a fabric pin. Fabric pin is something that you can get at a craft store. So Walmart might have them too, or a fabric marker. And that is usually for people that have a darker complexion, because they don't really make them in lighter colors. They usually just get a brown, and you just color in your part and along your hairline. You want to make sure the color matches your forehead. I say your forehead or your scalp. And another option again is to use your makeup, powder makeup, liquid foundation, cream foundation, and dab that in your part or around the hairline. I also want to talk to you about closure size and what size you should order when you're ordering a closure, because a lot of people don't know what size to order. There are a lot of different reasons why you order different sizes. As you can see, this closure is very small. It's only about 1.5 inches wide by like 3.5, 4 inches deep or long. You see this closure? Much bigger. So it's about 3.5 inches wide by 4.5 to 5 inches long. Now, I'm going to show you guys how much space this is going to cover. You see how much space this one covers and how far it's going to go back. So it's going to go back here. You see how much space this one's going to cover in the front, and it's going to go back further, okay? And let's say you wanted to wear your closure this way. It's going to cover more space across the front from side to side and less space in the back. Now, a few reasons why you might want to pick a smaller closure. You simply want to close up your install or your wig and have a part. You're only going to wear a middle part. You're only going to wear a side part. You're never going to move it. Then you might want a smaller closure. Another reason you might want a smaller closure is if the hair on your closure is not the same as the hair on your wefts. Then you want as little hair on the closure as possible so that you don't have issues blending the closure with the wefts, because you don't want to have one type of hair on top and another type on the bottom. So you would get a smaller closure so that you have less hair to worry about blending. Another reason to get a smaller closure, and this is the reason a lot of people don't take into consideration, is going to be your head, your hair. Now, if you have a hairline like me and you have thin spots on the sides, or you have any thinning around the sides, you don't want a closure that's going to fall right there on those spots, because you're not going to have anything to attach it to if you were sewing it on. That is a mistake that took me a while to learn. So if I had this closure, you see it falls here and here, I don't want this closure. It's the wrong size because it falls right at those points, those weak points where I don't have a lot of hair. It's going to be a lot harder to install it up here. Even if you try to install it behind the hairline, it's going to be a mess. So you would want to go with either a much smaller closure, or you want to go with something that's even bigger, or position it to the side so that it falls in the places where you have more hair to braid and sew onto. Now, you would order a larger closure if, number one, you want more parting space, okay? Because you can part it anywhere you want, okay? All that scalp part. So if you want a lot of parting space, if you want to do a side part, a middle part, triangles, twists, then you want to get a larger closure. If you want to wear your part deeper, you want your closure to go farther back this way. Now, be careful with going far back, because it can look really unnatural if your closure is way back here, your part's way back here, because it's just not something we do. And then your hair is going to end up looking really thin up here and too full at the bottom. So you want to be careful how far back you go. Some people may want to go farther across because you want to cover more of your hairline. And you're not that worried about the back, but you want to wear it away from your face. So those are some reasons why you would get a larger closure. That helps you pick out the type of the size closure that you want. Widow's peaks. That's one thing to think about. If you have a widow's peak and you want to wear a closure, and you don't want your closure sitting way down here, then you may want to you don't want to shave your widow's peak. You may want to consider doing behind, I call it behind the peak, not behind the hairline. Apply the closure behind your widow's peak, or some vendors actually offer custom closures with the widow's peak. It's kind of, I don't know how natural it's going to look. You might have to send a picture of your hairline. I don't know how natural it will look, but I'm just tossing it out there that those options are available with some vendors. So that might be something that you want to consider. Adding fabric or other things underneath your closure. Now, first of all, before I continue, you might want to check out Michi Too Cute's videos. She actually has some where she uses a stocking cap with tape applied to it. And I'm not sure if she applies makeup or not to the tape, but she uses that and applies it under her closures and her lace wigs, and it looks really natural. So you want to check her channel for that method. There are other, you can use a stocking or nylon to wear under your closure. I personally hate them because number one, they run, number two, they roll back. It like never fails. It rolls back, it shrinks, it stretches. It does all kind of things that I don't want it to do, and it's a lot bulkier than the fabric I like to use. Some people use iron-on patches that you get from the store. Those to me are too thick, and they're also too opaque because our scalps are not, they're not as opaque as we think they are because they're a lot lighter than our skin, but they're not it's not a drastic jump in color. So to me, those are too opaque, and they make it look more like a silk closure, which to me creates that line of demarcation. So I personally don't like it, but it might be something you want to try. What I use is a chiffon fabric, okay? I'm going to show you the different ones so you can see what they are if you want to find them in the store. You can find them in most craft stores or fabric stores. I get mine from Joann's Fabrics. This is one of the ones I use. You can see that it is somewhat sheer. And it is very, very thin, so it's breathable and it dries quickly. And it doesn't run, it doesn't stretch too much, and it's not gonna roll back and shrink. This is one of them. They come in different colors. This is another type. This one's a little different. This one has a little more stretch, still very sheer, very durable. Here's another type, and it's also in another color. They have different colors. This is for my ladies who have much lighter scalps. And here are a couple. Here's another one. Okay, this is a lighter color. They have darker colors as well. I haven't had the privilege of picking up any darker colors yet. And this is a different type of fabric. I actually had one of my Bossy Wig clients send this to me, just because she was being so kind, and thank you, I appreciate it, darling. This is a thicker fabric, okay, as you can see. So it's gonna be a little thicker under the closure, but not too much. It's gonna take a little longer to dry, and it's gonna look a lot more opaque. I'm gonna put one of these under closure so you can see what it looks like with it. You see what it looks like without it, okay? See everything behind it. With the fabric underneath, and I only use one thin layer of the fabric. I don't fold it over. One thin layer. Then it looks more like scalp, and it's a much more natural gradient than the harshness of a silk closure. Okay? I'm going to show you one of the other colors behind this closure. And if you are concerned about how to apply this fabric to the underside of a closure, I actually have a video showing a little bit about how to do it, but I'm going to do another video in detail about how to do it. You can either sew it onto the closure, or you can just apply the fabric to your head or to your wig and then sew the closure down on top of the fabric. But here's another one so you can see the fabric underneath. Looks more like scalp. And the darker the fabric, of course, the darker the scalp is going to be. And this fabric is actually really cheap, probably like maybe $2 or $3 a yard. And seriously, you don't need a yard. You don't need a quarter of a yard. You might need a tenth of a yard, but just get a yard so you have a bunch of it left. You saw the finished one in my other closure video, but I'll show it to you again. Okay. And I'll show you the underside of the closure. When I add the fabric, I don't ever add it all the way to the edge of the lace. I always leave a little of the lace hanging over because you want the edge of your closure to sit just in front of your hairline. And so you only want that fabric to cover your hair at your hairline. You don't want it to extend beyond your hairline because then you're gonna have a line of demarcation. So you want it to fall to where the fabric stops at your hairline and it doesn't go past it, but the lace does, so that it's a flawless transition from your forehead to the closure down into the scalp, okay? You don't want to take the material too far back, because then it won't reach far enough to your hairline. And you'll see darkness. It's gonna jump from your skin color to dark, then to scalp. So I'll show you how that looks. If it's too far back, you see that line right there, that line of demarcation. So you want to make sure you get that part just right. And you can also check out my other video about the closure basics, which has some braid patterns to wear under your closure, because one of the most important parts about installing your closure and having a flawless application is your braid pattern underneath. If you want to part your closure in more than one place, it needs to be completely flat under the closure, whether you place your closure in the middle or you place it on the side. It needs to be completely flat. So check out that video for the braid patterns that show you how to do it completely flat underneath. So that, because, oh my gosh, I just gotta show you guys again. I see this all the time, and I'm just trying to help out so that, you know, a lot of people may not know that this is happening with them, but they have a closure and the hairline looks great and they think it looks great, but instead of the closure going straight back, flat like this along their head, it goes up like that because they got braids, thick braids underneath, and it doesn't look natural because people's heads don't go up like that. So you kind of see what I'm saying? The scalp, it's like your scalp is raised up. Makes you look like you have a big old head. Instead of having it flat down like that where a scalp should be, it's literally like up like this. Okay? So that's why you want to have a flat foundation underneath your closure. Gosh, I hope I touched on everything today on this video. I tried to. I just wanted to cover lace closures again, and just to show you guys the difference between the ribbon edge, the PU strip, which is on the Oni closure that I did on a previous video. But this is going to be the ribbon edge where the lace is folded over, okay? This is the type of closure that has no anything, it's just lace. And this one actually has toner on it, but this is the PU strip. And it's like a plastic or a rubber. Okay? So if you all have any other questions about lace closures, please feel free to ask and I'll do an updated video about them. But I just wanted to touch on that with you guys really quick, and I hope that was helpful. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.